But if you go back and you check the evidence, you check the history of your life, and you will
Mm.
see that yes, you deserve to be there. And sometimes people are really afraid of success. The first time I heard that, I thought it sounded absurd. I said, well, why would someone be afraid of success? But I can understand that because there have been times where when I've allowed myself to really just dream, it could be jolting like, whoa, it's
Mm.
beautiful, but how do I get there? Like, this is big. I'm going to need resources and people.
You could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Dr. Sherlonda Adkins. She is an unstuck strategist, a speaker, and a success coach. Hello, Dr. Sherlonda. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am delighted to be here.
Thank you. So let's start a conversation by diving into your journey of becoming the person you are today. What led you to discover your true passion in life? How did it start for you?
Well, it was probably a lot of trial and error, and honestly, I having lived this much of a life, and when I look back, I can see all of the strategic thinking and intentionality. But back then, it was really just learning and leaning into what felt good at that particular time. I've always felt like I marched to the beat of a different drum, or went upstream, or went against the grain when it came to a lot of things. And I learned to embrace that not fitting in is okay, which is so weird because when we're younger, that's our desire, to fit in, to blend in, to be
Yeah.
accepted. But then I think the older we get, we start to appreciate some of the things that make us different, the things that make us unique, and we're able to add our own sauce to the world. So I have so many stories of how I, started a journey and thought it was going to be the right journey because it sounded good. It actually felt good at the moment, but then when things started to shift, and having the opportunity to go through those personal experiences, not knowing that other people were watching and being inspired by my choices and my action, is what led me to where I am now, because so many people would reach out and say, your courage, your tenacity, you don't seem afraid, like, how do you do these things? And so it forced me to think and figure out what the strategies were, and then offer that to others to help them to do the same in their own lives.
Yes, wow, this is so inspiring. And also, I want to really uncover this unstuck strategist, I would say, name that you have right now, because this is something people know you by. And I
Mhm.
know it's one of your gifts and talents. And just want to really expand on what does it mean to be unstuck in your own perception of it, and how do you see people can become unstuck in our daily lives, knowing that we all go through ups and downs. It's always, kind of like stressful in a way that we see our experiences, and a lot of times we in our mind make ourselves stuck and we're not moving forward. So what could help people to really understand that they're stuck, and what are the practices that could benefit them from starting from that point, going moving forward?
Okay. Well, first of all, with being stuck, I always like to say that when you hear the word stuck, it has a negative connotation, right? And no one ever wants to be stuck. However,
Mhm.
being stuck is not always a bad thing, because being stuck can be an indicator letting us know that our soul is out of alignment, meaning that our true direction of where we're wanting to go, our true desires, it's not lining up with the environment around us. So being stuck sometimes, even though it's uncomfortable, can be a good
Mhm.
catalyst for change. So I always like to start with that so that people well, normalize, feeling stuck at different times in our lives. I have never met a person yet who has
Mm,
never felt stuck at some point in their life,
yeah.
right? And so what does it mean to be unstuck? So unstuck, that definition is going to look different for everybody, but it's basically being able to define what success looks like for you in your life. And unstuck is actually an acronym. The U
Mm,
stands for unlearning the definition of success that you've grown accustomed to believing, because chances are what you think about when you think about success probably has something to do with your where you grew up, the society in which you grew up, the family system in which you grew up, cultural norms, professional standards, even watching TV. I mean, goodness, if you sit
mm,
down and watch TV and you see what is being presented as a successful life, a lot of times it's focused on the material things, having mansions in exotic places and
right.
having, 5 or 10 cars to drive, all of these things. And they seem really fun, but at the end of the day, that is not necessarily a person's definition of success, because if it were, why do you see so many wealthy people who are still feeling stuck? So,
Mm,
really understanding that you have the power to determine what success looks like for you. In my life personally, I used to think when I was younger, I followed that whole script of, oh my gosh, I want to be super rich. I want to be a multimillionaire and I can have all these things. But then when I dissected that, so when I have all of these things, what does that mean? And it really boiled down to I wanted freedom and
mm,
flexibility. So the freedom to do the work that I love doing when I want to do it, where I want to do it. So having that geographical freedom to go anywhere in the
yeah.
world, to work with the people that I choose to work with. So those were the values, and to be able to spend time with my family and not feel like I'm so, burned out. So for me, defining what I really wanted in life, it took me on a different trajectory. So it wasn't so much about climbing the corporate ladder and being super
Mhm.
successful in that, right? But really leaning into what really makes my soul happy. What keeps me, when I wake up in the morning, I'm happy to wake up because
Mm.
I get to live life on the terms that I set aside as being successful. And so, but how does one do that? So the question is, well, that sounds good. And you're the unstuck strategist. So, yeah, you know that. But how do I start? So, the first step is really just awareness where you are on your journey, awareness of, am I feeling stuck? Well, maybe I'm not stuck because I know the direction that I want to go. I just need some encouragement. And then there are some people who are totally like, I know there's something I'm supposed to be doing. I have no clue how to figure it out. So, literally, there's no momentum. There's no moving forward. That's not even moving backwards. I'm literally just stuck. So just having that awareness to know where you are is key. So hopefully that answered. I know there's so much to like dive into, but that's really the first step, is recognizing that you are stuck. And then we can even talk about some of the, physical signs and symptoms of being stuck.
Yes, and I think a lot of times we don't have that awareness. We don't have the presence with ourselves in this moment. We're always either worrying about the future or being, attached to the past. So all of those distractions around us also pulls the focus away from being present here. And with our willingness to really listen to how we feel physically, emotionally, I think it brings us back to where am I right now? How am I feeling? Is it something that really in alignment with my values? So you mentioned values. I think it's an important aspect of our lives that we have to really consider seriously and be clear on what our values are and what I would stand on. What is it that will bring you that fulfillment and joy in the long term? Are you in alignment with those values? And if you know what they are, then it's easy for you to kind of check in with yourself and see if that's really something that is in alignment. But success, like you mentioned, really is different for everybody. It's not always about money, being rich, but the abundance, it's more of a term that I think encompasses both financial freedom, also freedom of doing something that you love and doing it on your terms, and really seeing the progress of what is it that you're creating, because every one of us are unique and have their unique talents and abilities and skills to be of service to other people. But how can we bring that to the present moment and being able to share that with others? So I just want to really like see your opinion on how can we help ourselves to come in that creation mode, to come in the flow of energy that helps us to bring our skills and really apply towards building something of value for other people.
Yeah, and it's so amazing because, like I said, Unstuck is an acronym, and you went right into the next step. So the N in Unstuck stands for nurturing your soul.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about getting quiet enough to hear the inner voice and to really feel the inner compass, which direction you're going. But you're so right, there's so much to distract us. There are so many distractions that it's really difficult. In fact, we talk about the pandemic and being in quarantine, and it
Mm-hmm.
was tough for a lot of people. It was tough, personally as well in some
Yeah.
aspects. But in some aspects, I really appreciated being forced to sit still,
Yeah.
because in society with our responsibilities and expectations, it's easy to just keep going and not really digging deep. And how can you get into alignment, your internal and your external, if you don't pause and sit still long enough? And that looks different for everybody. For some people, it could be going out and taking a walk in nature and just connecting in that sense. Everybody may not have that opportunity. Maybe there's someone who, maybe can't get outside, or maybe they don't live in a place where there's, nature around them. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
really just sitting still and being present, feeling the air on your skin, just mindfulness activities. But I really encourage people to tap in. A lot of times people are afraid, because
Mm-hmm.
we are powerful. We have the power to create, and sometimes people are really afraid of success. The first time I heard that, I thought it sounded absurd. I said, well, why would someone be afraid of success? But I can understand that, because there have been times where, when I've allowed myself to really just dream, it could be jolting, like, whoa, it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, but how do I get there? Like, this is big. I'm going to need resources and people. Where are the people? And so then it can become like this fearful, and then you just say, you know what, never mind, let me stick with what's comfortable.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an example of, in 2017, I'll give you an example of the sitting still, and what that did, that helped lead me to where I am now as the
Mm-hmm.
Unstuck Strategist. So in 2017, my husband and I took a trip, and we went to the Caribbean, to Turks and Caicos, and we were
Yeah.
celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. And it was just beautiful sitting on the beach. It was the pretty, still, I've been to a lot of tropical places, and it's
Mm-hmm.
still the most beautiful beaches I've seen in Turks and Caicos. So we're looking at the turquoise water and the white sand. And then I call them flutters. And what flutters are, it's something that bypasses how I'm able to comprehend. It's not just my brain. You see the brain behind me? It's not just
Mm-hmm.
that. It's like these divine flutters. It just comes really
Right.
quickly, like this idea or this thought. And the thought came that, what if we could live someplace like this, like part-time? Like, we could live in our regular world with our kids and, work, but we would have a reason to come here, not just for vacation, but we have something to do in a place like this. And as quickly as that thought came, I could see it, but then it scared me.
Oh.
And so I just sort of let it be. but I remembered it and it was a thought and I just kind of tucked it away. So fast forward 4 or 5 years later, I had an opportunity to look for some additional work. So our son started college, and I was thinking, wow, I did not know. People told us college was going to be really expensive, but it was very, very expensive. And I said, well, maybe there's some things I could do to supplement our income, you know. And I had never looked for a job
Mm.
before as a PA because all of my jobs, I knew people, and hey, we would love to have you, like that sort of thing. So I started looking, and
Mm.
one of the first things I saw was a position for a PA to work in the Caribbean. And when I
Wow.
saw it, something leaped within me. And then I said, no, 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 this isn't possible, because on the job posting, it said that no remote work was available, like you had to be there. And
Yeah.
I said, okay, this isn't for me. So I kept going. But then I would scroll back and I just looked at it, and it was just something happening again. This is not even part of my brain processing. And I just couldn't let it go. And I said, you know what? I heard my mom's voice in my ear that said, you never know unless you try.
Yeah.
So I submitted my application for it. And a few days later, they reached out and
Mm.
said they wanted to do an interview. And again, I got scared. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? So I said, you know what? I don't want to even get my hopes up. So I sent the message and I said, listen, um, I can't relocate. And I noticed the position says there's no remote work available, but I don't want to waste anyone's time. But is there an opportunity for maybe some type of hybrid experience? Maybe I could come there for a little bit of time. And they wrote back and said, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I love to share the story, because sitting there on the beach in 2017 in Turks and Caicos, when that flutter came by, was
Mhm.
preparation for years later when an opportunity came. Because if that moment had not happened, if I had not visualized and actually felt it in that moment, like it was a whole body reaction, they have just saw that posting and just didn't think anything about it, kept scrolling.
Right.
But when I saw it, there was a connection. There was a connection made there. And so I
Mhm.
tell the story just to emphasize the importance of being able to sit, to be in a place of sitting, to be able to receive, because I think that we get little, when we talk about creativity, I think we get little
Mhm.
clues and glimmers of things that are to come, or paths that we're supposed to be on. But it's so easy to discount those things if we're
Right.
if we're busy, if we're distracted. So yeah, so nurturing your soul is a huge part of getting unstuck.
Wow. Yeah, that is an amazing experience. And thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people would really find it beneficial to see how it happened for you and also start noticing in their own lives, because a lot of times we receive different creative ideas that's common to us, and like you mentioned, it's not part of our brain, not our cognitive thinking, but it's more like different way of us connecting to the field of possibilities, I would say, the energy around us, right? And that potential that is available for us to tap into, we're not using even a fraction of it, right? We're always living in that comfort zone, in that bubble in our life that we're already familiar with. We know what to expect. And we kind of like, in our linear thinking, knowing that this is how it's going to look like in the future based on our past experiences. But what if we don't know? What if it's okay not to know how it could unfold for us? What if we let ourselves think big and really, like you said, visualize, or allow ourselves to dream, to think about what will bring me that fulfillment and joy, what would I want for myself, and see what comes, what are the ideas that really can support you into bringing that experience into your life. And in a way, you are creating the experience, but really first living it through your emotional state. You feel it as if you are right now, if you have it already, and it is possible. And then all of those thoughts about how can I bring it to life we start overwhelming ourselves, right?
Yes.
And we always think, oh, I don't have right connections, or different type of reasoning why I cannot do it at this moment. But there are always tools available to you to make that first step, and then step after that. And then once you start moving into the direction of what is it that you want, maybe you will meet certain people, certain opportunities will come to your life, and you don't know. And that's I think, like, the not knowing part could be scary. And that's where we feel the stuckness happening in people's
Mhm.
lives. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you, just like you said, we want to rely on the information that we already have. And if we're only using the information we already have, we're only going to go but so far. And I think that's
Right.
one of the reasons I didn't know it earlier, but one of the reasons why I love traveling so much is because when I travel, it forces me to think differently. I
Mhm.
can't go based on past constructs of what I know as, you know, a woman growing up in on the East Coast in South Carolina in the United States. If I'm traveling to Australia, or if I am in, let's see, Mauritius, or wherever I may be, I have to think, I have to turn on different parts of my brain that just stay in, autopilot, when I'm home. And that's why they always say, even when you're in your familiar settings, to try to take a different route. If you're going to the store, take a different
Right.
way, just because it causes you to, I call it like a brain scramble. So it
Mhm.
just causes my brain to think in different ways, expansiveness. And you can't see it here, but right in front of me on the wall, I have a big world map. And I have
Mhm.
like a little pin in every place that I've been. And then I have a globe that I keep like really close to
Yeah.
me, that I like to always have access to, because for number one, it helps keep me grounded in terms
Yeah.
of, regardless of what we may be experiencing, like, the world is big. There's so many people, there's so many other, issues. And then I look at the world and also think that the world is small too when it comes to connecting with humanity, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, which is to live a life of joy, a life of love, to give love and to
Yeah.
receive love and to not be stuck. And to your point, as we go down the acronym, you mentioned, taking steps. So
Mhm.
there's the U, the N, and then the S stands for saying what you want. So you have clarity, and then you have to state what it is that you want, and state it with a boldness. And then the T is
Mhm.
then take a step, because it's one thing to say, this is the life that I desire, but it's not just going to happen if you sit still. Like, there is
Right.
the element of taking some steps. I'm a huge proponent of journaling.
Mhm.
So much that I have more than one journal. And I don't know if you're a journaler as well and you can understand this, but I have, like, there's a business journal, and then there's
Mhm.
just like my random thoughts and dreams. And then there's like an affirmations journal that I have. But the power in that, research has shown that people who can take their goals, write them down, and then even say them, turn them into affirmations, are going to be much more likely to see those things come to pass. And it's just, it's neuroscience. It's like a real thing. Um, and I remember when I was in school, when I was becoming a PA, and I didn't
Mhm.
tell anybody this because I was a little embarrassed about it, but I had a journal and I wrote down some pretty lofty goals. Now, in my mind, I felt they were lofty, but basically, I said that I don't want to work full-time hours, but I want full-time pay. I don't want to work on holidays or weekends. I don't want to
Mhm.
work at night, and I want to work close to home, because at the time, even though I was a student, I was already married and already had children. So again, going back to what my values are, flexibility, I wanted to have the flexibility to be available if my kids were going on a field trip, or maybe they had a performance. I don't want to be that mom who's never there. Like, I still want it to be
Right.
a part of their lives. And so I wrote these goals down. And the reason I didn't share them is because, think about it. We're in this program and they're training us to go out into the workforce, into the
Yeah.
medical world, and to see patients, and to work, work, work. And I'm saying, I don't want to do that. And so, but by writing these goals down, I kid you not, when I graduated, all of those things, I had 2 part-time jobs, and even with the 2 part-time jobs, they still didn't add up to full-time hours. One was 5 minutes out the front of my neighborhood, the other was about
Wow.
7 minutes out the back of my neighborhood. I didn't work nights or weekends, and I had full-time pay. So it works,
It
it really does.
works.
And I've seen that time and time again. So I really encourage people, regardless of how weird it may sound or how far-fetched, still write your goals down, because it's just that, like the law of attraction. If you've ever heard somebody say, "Oh, I'm getting this new yellow,
Mhm.
I don't know, Camaro," and then all of a sudden you see yellow Camaros everywhere because your friend mentioned it, and now your brain is looking for it. So when you
Right.
state what it is that you want, your brain is going to look for these opportunities to, connect. And people, you talked about connecting with people. So collaboration, that's the C in Unstuck. Getting with
Hmm.
people who can help you expand on what it is that, not so much what you want out of life, but what you want to give, because we're all gifted.
Right.
We all have gifts to give to this world. And the more you can connect with people, your contribution to this world can only be elevated, escalated, expanded, all those great things.
Yes, wow. Yeah, I think journaling is a great tool and I'm using myself and I know a lot of people who find it beneficial, and I believe it works because it helps you first to express all your thoughts and ideas and dreams. Just put it on paper and it becomes real, right? Once you start writing it, everything that's in your mind, you kind of bring it to the surface in front of your eyes, and now you can look at it, read it, reread it, and kind of like, I would say, even train yourself into believing that it's possible for you. Because I feel like a lot of people, first of all, they don't think they deserve to have certain things in life. They think,
Mhm.
okay, so this person is more deserving than me, but then why? If we all, have access to everything that is possible, so every one of us can have it. So, and then a lot of times we don't believe in our ability to receive it, to have it in our life. So, with us starting journaling and bringing into on a paper and just really like look at it daily and keep writing of what is it that we want, really being true with ourselves, being honest and expressing our own desires and believing that we can achieve those goals. We don't know what it's going to take us to do it, but once we start going to that direction with certain steps that we can take today and staying committed to what is it that we want, I feel like a lot of times we being discouraged, but we have to remind ourselves, first of all, why do I want it? Because there's a reason
Mm,
why you want
yes.
something. And that fuels your desire, that fuels your motivation to keep going and not stop and not giving up. And also, I think we should really like show ourselves the progress that we made, even small wins, right? We need to celebrate those. We need to show ourselves evidence. All right, so I achieved this part and I achieved that part. So I'm getting closer to where I'm going. So, and it's kind of like motivating and it's internal because you cannot be motivated enough externally. It has to come from within, don't you
Yes.
think?
Yes, absolutely. I love everything that you just said. I love it all. I especially love what you said about making sure that we celebrate our wins,
Mhm.
because I honestly don't think that we were taught that. So for example, when I grew up, we were taught to be very, humble. You don't talk about yourself a lot in your
Yeah.
accomplishments because you don't want to make other people feel bad, or you don't want to come off as arrogant or that you think you know everything. And so with that humility, and it's true, you don't want to be that person, but
Mhm.
I also think that we can overcorrect with with our humility, and then we don't celebrate things when, in fact, if you look over your life, there have been things that all of us have done that have just been so amazing.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me a question the other day about imposter syndrome, like what are some things you can do to overcome imposter syndrome? And that was one of the tools. Make a list, look at your evidence,
Yeah.
because as you move to different levels, sometimes it can get a little intimidating about being in a new space and you're like, oh my gosh, am I supposed to be here? Am I worthy to be here? But if you go back and you check the evidence, you check the history of your life, and you will
Mm.
see that, yes, you deserve to be there. So I absolutely love that. And, having a list of those things, because we do have to remind ourselves sometimes, just like we eat food physically, we're still going to wake up
Right.
tomorrow and be hungry. We can feel really motivated today, but maybe tomorrow not as much. So it's good to
Mm.
have that running list. And then you also mentioned that sometimes people don't feel that they are worthy,
Right.
for whatever the reason may be. So again, like the unstuck, the second you is understanding your emotions, because we all have sticky thinking, or at some
Mm.
point have had some sticky thinking in our mind, and we do have to get to the base of that, the root of it, to determine why it is that we feel a certain way about ourselves, or about
Mhm.
ourself as it relates to the world, or about other people. Because a lot of times being stuck, well, now I won't say a lot, I would say the majority of the times that we're feeling stuck, it has less to do about what's going on with other people and
Yeah.
environments than it does. It's really about what's going on internally with ourselves. And if we're able to dissect it and push past it, then all of a sudden these external situations that we thought were blocking us, they're no longer the barrier.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's important for us to really understand ourselves on a deeper level and see what is it that's hindering the progress, what are our beliefs about ourselves, because it all comes down to what do you believe you deserve. And with that unshakable belief in yourself, it will help you to move forward more easily. And of course, it takes time, it takes courage to look into yourself, to be honest, and to really maybe seek even help, because a lot of times we don't think there are, people that could help and hold space for us, and we're afraid of being vulnerable to speak
Mhm.
up. And that is something that I think was stigmatized in our society, and we should normalize it. We should really think of it as prioritizing our mental and physical health, and knowing that we are important. We are important. There's a reason for us to be here, and we need to live to our best potential that we possibly can. And what can I do for myself to give myself the best chance in life? What can I do? How can I help myself? And if I need help from other people, there are a lot of practitioners who can provide that opportunity to really heal and grow into a best version of who you can be.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think that was another positive that came out of the pandemic. We started to hear more people say, like, I'm not okay, and
Yeah.
that it was, okay to get help. And talking to people, again, we need people for a lot of different reasons, but talking to people to help give us a different perspective. When I talk about sticky thinking, I can tell you two real quickly. I know we're running out of time, but two lies that I believed about
Mm.
myself for a long time. And number one, so the first one was years ago, I said, I don't have any gifts. So let me put it in context. So being in church, I would see some people who could just sing like angels. Well, that's not me.
Mm.
I mean, I could sing a little bit, but not like that. Or I see these artists and or these dancers and just people who could just do these amazing things. And I said, I don't really have a gift. Maybe my gift is just I can do a little bit of everything, just a little bit. So yeah, that's my
Mm.
gift. And so my husband, he said, "You're serious about this, aren't you?" And he said, "You don't see it." He said, "You don't
Mm.
see what your gift is." He said, "It's so apparent." He said, "I want you to pay attention to all of the people who call you and ask for advice when they're in a
Mhm.
crossroads, or how you could just be out in public and you're talking to someone and they walk away and they're motivated. He said, you don't see that as a gift. And I said,
Mhm.
no, but that's just what I do, you know, that's not a gift. And that was like the breakthrough for me saying, yeah, we all, because I knew we all had gifts. I just felt like mine was just, it was because it wasn't one of those, artsy forward facing gifts.
Yeah.
So then once I realized it and I believed that it really was a gift and I saw evidence over and over and over again, and then that's when I say, I want to channel this. Now I want to be intentional because this was just me being me. But now, how can I
Mhm.
intentionally help other people push past, being stuck? So that was one of my limiting beliefs. And then the second one, believe it or not, I love sharing this story, is I
Mhm.
thought something was wrong with me because when I graduated from high school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So, in college, I majored in communications because I said, whatever I end up doing in life, I'll need to know how to speak and how to write,
Yeah.
but I don't know what I want to do. So I graduated and I worked for an insurance company, excelled in the job, did well. But after a few years, I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And then we had our first child. So I was a stay-at-home mom, and that was okay for a little bit. Then I said, I love my child, but I want more. So there was always this, I'm okay for a moment, but then I want something else. So I actually thought something was wrong with me because
Mm.
I thought that you're supposed to go to college, get a job, and you work that job all your life, and then you retire. But me, the way that my brain's working, I just can't stick with one thing at one time. So fast forward, decades later, I realized that was actually my superpower, but I
Yeah.
thought it was so different, and I was beginning to not like it and to despise it and wish that I was like other people. When in
Yeah.
fact, the way that my brain works and the way that I navigate life has been such an inspiration and hope for so many other people. And now I embrace it. I love it. And if I could, people say, what would you go back and tell your 18-year-old self? And I would just
Mhm.
tell her, girl, just do you, be you. You are okay. Do not change anything about
Yes.
yourself. Just continue to grow and glow. But I like to share those stories because I am the unstuck strategist, but it doesn't mean that that didn't come with challenges. And even, still I'm evolving, just like the earth, right? So the earth
Mhm.
is always doing two things at one time. The earth is spinning while it's rotating the sun. So same thing with us, we're evolving. So we're having this conversation in August of 2024. I'm sure if we were to talk again in August of 2027, I'll be doing something different. Ultimately
Yeah,
my
of
purpose,
course.
still making the same impact in the world, but in a different package. And that's the part that keeps life fun.
Yes. Wow. I love this. And thank you for sharing. I think we all have to embrace our uniqueness and really fall in love with who we are without comparing ourselves to other people, because you're not that person, you are you. And that's what makes you unique. That's what your reason here for. And you just need to see it for yourself. You need to understand yourself and your values and your talents and gifts that are different from other people, and that's okay. That's what makes you very unique in your own way, and that's
Mhm.
beautiful. And once we start seeing that, embracing it as our superpower, that's when we step in our full potential and bring it to
Yes.
life and help other people. And like you mentioned, it was easy for you. I really found it interesting how we really don't give ourselves credit for what we're good at. We take it as granted, we dismiss it. But that's where we actually have to look into, because the reason why it's easy, because it's one of your gifts and you just don't see it. And that's where you have to find the power and expand it, and really like be intentional of bringing that as a service to other people.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. But it takes time to see that. or
Yes.
like you or like you said, getting help, like talking to a professional, whether it's a therapist or a coach, but talking to someone who can give you that perspective, because when you're in it, it just seems so, I mean, you can't really see the big picture and the
Yeah,
value in which you
definitely.
bring to the world. So yeah.
Yes. I'm so glad we had this conversation today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and wisdom. And for those who would like to connect with you online, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at drsherlondaadkins.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook as well. And I work internationally, so I have clients all over the globe. And I used to joke and tell people like, you never know, maybe I'll come and we'll do an in-person session, but it's not a joke anymore because our children now we're in the final stages of bird launching. So we have 2 adult children, and then our youngest daughter just started her senior year of high school. So that means that we'll get to do more,
Travel the world.
in person, traveling around the world. I think I'm at country 25 or 26 by the end of this month. So I'm ready to add some more stamps to the passport.
Yes, definitely. I hope you enjoy all of your trips. And as we close today, what would be the thought for our listeners?
Thought for listeners is just remember that you are unique. There's nothing wrong with you. You have been given the raw materials. You have everything that you need, and just tap into inside, really look inside and do what feels good. Don't rely so much on your brain to make
Mhm.
all your decisions. Use your whole body, your whole body to make decisions, and yeah, and just have joy, give joy and receive joy. And I think that will put you on the path to where you're supposed to be.
All right. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.